answer to how was that goal not offside. I'm absolutely and utterly baffled, as I imagine you all are at home as well. So City have been beaten in the derby after a dominant second half display that certainly did not deserve that result. I'm still joined in the studio by Shaun Goater, David Mooney and Stephen McInerney. There doesn't seem to be anywhere that we can start other than that goal. I cannot fathom. I would love anybody's suggestion or idea as to why that was given offside and then overturned. Well,
it was given offside because it's the correct decision to give it offside. So, I mean, I got the offside law here, and one of the lines is that if a player is interfering with an opponent by preventing an opponent from playing or being able to play the ball, clearly obstructing the opponent's line of view, or challenging the opponent for the ball. That's perfectly what Rashford did.
Every single bit of it.
I can give you an example that they provide in the laws as well, because I did the same. A player moving from or standing in an offside position is in the way of an opponent and interferes with the movement of the opponent.
Yeah.
So
he shields the ball. He literally
players all drawn to him.
This doesn't even feel like something we should have to discuss. That's the crazy thing about it. I've known this since I was 6 years old. It's one of those things, it's been such a fundamental part of the offside law for such a long time that anyone who understands football knows that you can't follow the ball if you're offside. There is no possible way that he does not affect the outcome of that moment right there by following the ball. It's such a sickener as a City fan and as a football fan, really, because once again, it just challenges what you thought was a fundamental of the game. And you've known that even since you were a player, surely, Shaun, as well.
It's hugely disappointing because you're thinking you got a big call to make her, easy call to make it, and he's just not made the call. It's really disappointing because we're seeing what we saw in the replays. The ball's going across. Rashford it is met for Rashford. He's running onto it. He's not quite aware until he's probably 2-3 meters away from Fernandes and realizes, Fernandes is coming on his right foot, and therefore he then leaves it. And the ball was literally 3 to 4. Centimetres away from his foot.
Points it to Fernandes there.
Yeah.
I've left it for you. It's he even says, I'm interfering with his arms, and it's...
Are you telling me that Manuel Akanji doesn't just kick the ball away if Rashford isn't there? It's like...
Exactly.
Yeah.
If that's the level of interference, then he's clearly interfering with the play.
It's just so frustrating because it's one of those things where you can take a loss if you feel like there's something you could do about it. And ultimately, the second goal happens, but they're only human beings, And we're still furious 20 minutes later. Of course, the players are, given the context of the game, given the context of the performance so far. They were playing well. They were in control of the game. Yeah. And a moment like that, you do lose your heads. They're human beings. And that goal happens because Old Trafford is, in rapture again. And the energy goes that way. So it doesn't happen that second goal without it.
I get the argument that after that decision, you have to calm down, get back to your level, but it's also it's not just the effect it's had on City, it's the effect it's had on United. And suddenly the game's so much easier for them to get control of because of the incident that's just happened.
And 70,000 people now all of a sudden happy.
That's the momentum of it.
Now you can defend that the second goal, you can defend it better, you can stop that from happening. But that the situation from that doesn't happen without the momentum shift that the first goal.
Yeah, and the energy of it doesn't happen either. Yeah. It's not the fact that the chance doesn't happen. It's more the momentum in the ground and everything about it. And it's just, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's just a sickener. It's an absolute sickener. And I'm going to be furious for the rest of the week, at least.
When we look at that whole situation there, and we saw how the crowd got into the game, that was specifically why City played the first half the way they did.
Yeah.
So it didn't allow the crowd to get into the game, and you can see there the referee making that bad call. The players, they get up, get a bit of belief, and then go on to score a second. All from the momentum of the back call and the belief and the crowd. It just gave them that belief then.
Obviously, we get beat midweek against Southampton, which is always a sickener to get beat, but you take it on the chin because you know you didn't play very well, you know that Southampton were the better team that day and you think the result was deserving. The sickener about today is that is not a fair result on the game. We come out in the second half and we dominated 87.5% of the possession in the first 15 minutes. Jack Grealish comes on in 193 seconds. He scores. We are controlling the game in every play. Every part of the pitch, we are controlling it. Rodri is showing how vastly superior he is to Casemiro and, quite frankly, every other central defensive midfielder in the world. And then they get one chance, one mistake by the referees, and everything changes. And it's hard to take.
I think what's most frustrating about it is that they called it right first.
Yeah.
They called it right first, and then I don't know whether it's... I mean, we don't like to see players surrounding officials, but we see all teams do it. And I don't know if it's that pressure of that, if it's the fact that you've got such a big home crowd there, you know, willing on to, for the decision to be changed.
But why have we got VAR? Why have we got it if it is not for these massive decisions? Well, who's not looking back at that and going, yeah, no, he's definitely interfering?
It's just, it feels like at times they're operating off a different rule book than we are. Like, ultimately, I want to know, I want to hear why that is given. I really want to know. I think people deserve to know as well. The players deserve to know. Pep does. We do as fans. We deserve to know why that was given, because it just doesn't make any sense. And
we need it for the game, though. I mean, I could go into this
it changes football fundamentally, doesn't it? Yeah. It changes football.
You need the referee to come out now in front of the TV cameras. He's not answering questions. He's just saying, I gave that goal onside because blah, 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 blah. The game needs that because we're all losing our heads every time there's a VAR decision because we don't understand it.
I mean, the number of managers, players that will watch that and just think, wow, if referee's not interfering, what is it? So
let's just stick 4 players around the ball in offside position.
And just shield the ball, until the through goal.
So I mean, this now messes with players who think, well, how much of the rules do I know? Because players will now think, well, I could be as close to the ball as I want, and I'm not interfering, as long as I just leave it and let somebody else come and take it. The other interesting thing for me is Pep Guardiola is a manager that does his talking with his players on the field, and he never complains about a refereeing decision. So it'll be interesting because I would find him on a whole other level for him to not complain about this.
He will be incandescent.
Yeah,
right
he'll
now.
be.
Because I mean, ultimately, you look at the play. City have defended it fine. They've done everything they should do. They've caught Rashford offside. They've dealt with everything that they have to do. And then they've been punished for it.
Yeah, I saw people say play to the whistle, but that was so clear cut that you would. It feels unfair to say that City made any form of defensive mistake there because by no measure should that ever be a goal, you know. So they can't say they should have played to the whistle. The whistle should have just gone. That should be the solution.
I just want us to go back to the day where the player's offside and the assistant just puts his flag up straight away. There's no danger of anyone getting injured chasing down when it's clearly offside. He's offside and we move on with the game. Now, I do feel like we'll be talking about this for a long, long time, but there is other points in the game. I mean, there's definitely a lot of positives we can take from it, especially in comparison to the way we played midweek. I mean, first of all, if we're looking for a positive, let's talk about Rodri.
Yeah.
Stephen, how good is Rodri?
Godri, he was monstrous. He controlled that game, and we were sat chatting during the game actually about as much as we love Fernandinho, like he was more defensively perfect. He was everywhere, but in terms of controlling a game, I've not seen a number 6 of City do that before. Like, that was against possibly the other best centre midfielder in the world in Casemiro, defensive midfielder. He took control of the whole stadium. You know, everyone was bouncing off him, recycling the ball, creating attacks from deep as well. Physical, intelligent, knew exactly where to be. It was masterful from Rodri, and absolutely didn't deserve to be on the losing side of that. But yeah, I mean, I'm so upset still. So upset after that. But Rodri was incredible.
It's devastating, but I feel like we have to look at the positives because we're not, you know, what are we halfway through the season now? Was that game 18 or game 19 of the season? Game 19, we're halfway through the season now. We have to look at the positives. We've still got another half of the season to go. We've got to pull the positives from that. For me, Rodri was a huge positive in that. And another one, Jack Grealish, is looking since the World Cup break like the player that we bought, that we wanted to buy, that we bought, and that he's finally coming good for us. 193 seconds off the bench, scores. Yeah,
great header as well. There's a real disappointment, I think, from looking at the result, and it's hard to detach from the result and the performance because the performance didn't deserve the result it got. And I think weirdly the positive to take from this game is not necessarily individual performances. I mean, I thought Grealish was great. I thought Rodri was great. I think it's actually to see that Guardiola is building a system that is starting to work for City this season. Sure, you didn't get the result today. They haven't had the result in a couple of games this season where they've played fairly well. They're going through a big transition at the moment. They've got a new shape and a new setup with Haaland up front that they've not had in the last few years. They don't have the personnel in the centre like they did in last season. They had an extra player in the middle last season to control games. You look at the control that they had of that game up until the decision which changed it. they were doing what they were doing last season, but the shape was totally different. And they had Bernardo buzzing around. They had, De Bruyne was finding pockets of space again and really pushing United back. United couldn't get out of their box for a good 20, 25 minutes of that second half. And that was because of how City had changed their shape and what they were doing with, especially with the fullbacks coming inside and Rodri dropping into the centre-backs. It's starting to see that as the bigger picture for what is this season. Now, sure, the result's not great, and it may mean that City have got a job on their hands now to chase down Arsenal at the top of the table. It's not over. They've got to play Arsenal twice. They've got the chance to affect the title race directly in that sense. But you can see what they're building. They might win something this season. They might win nothing this season. But you can see the direction of travel that they're in now. And I think that's huge. And I think having done that to United for so long, again, I stress, sure, they didn't get the result, but the overall bigger picture is that things are definitely moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, that was, up until that moment, that was powerful, actually. Like City, they haven't been themselves, but there was a sense, I was watching, I was excited. Like, this feels like the Man City that we know and love. You felt like the first 45 minutes, even though a little bit cagey, was them just trying to rediscover their conviction in their game and try and find what we know they're capable of, that slow, intricate build-up, but with intent and purpose. And that came in the second half, and they used that first half as a platform to build. And they were so good. And this is a United side, who are, by many people's standards, in a title race, and they've won so many games in a row, and they're coming off the back of their best spell in, I don't know how long, maybe in a decade. They've been absolutely great recently. But still, City were by far and away the better team for large parts of that game. And that came, it wasn't like we came out the blocks that way. We built on it. Yeah. And you could tell them believing who they were step by step. And every 10 minutes, City got better and they started to find a little bit of conviction. And to me, that's the biggest, positive take from it. And maybe, that sense of injustice can be a massive motivator. It can. Maybe we go,
If you flip it around the other way and City had won the derby but played as United did, we'd be sitting here saying, we got a great result, but I want to see a bit more here and a bit more there, and that's the positive to take from this game. That for the remainder of the season, 19 games left to go. There's a lot of football to be played.
Play like that, we win a lot.
Yeah, play like that, they'll do all right.
I'm taking that from this as well, Shaun, because I know in my belly now, I feel upset at the referee. I don't feel upset at the team.
No.
I feel like I've got a fighting spirit that's come back in me that I didn't have on Wednesday night after the game.
Yeah, the thing is, I can imagine being in a dressing room now, and Pep will say, "Listen to these players. The world is against us, but it's only us that can get us to go put on these great runs, and whether that's 15 games, consecutive wins, 18, whatever it takes to go and challenge, make sure that we push Arsenal all the way. I can see City going on one of those runs because it could come from a moment like this, where the first time we've lost 2 games back to back, but we've performed really well. And again, I think Pep will look back and say that game is lost because of the referee's decision. So I don't think they get the sacking without that first.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait to see what Pep's going to say after the game. Of course, we feel like we've got that fighting spirit back in us again, and we'll get a chance to prove that on Thursday night as we take on Spurs at home. Of course, Matchday Live will be with you ahead of that game. Kel will be back here. I'm also looking forward to seeing what Kel thinks as well. I love Kel's post-match reactions. Thursday night, we take on Spurs, a game that historically we've often found difficult, Stephen. But hey, why not? Bring it on.
Don't. Well, maybe this is the right time to play him. Maybe this is... if I was Conte and Spurs, I'd be like, they're going to be really annoyed. They're going to be absolutely furious. And I don't know. Spurs feels like the best and possibly the worst team to play right now, maybe. Maybe it's the time to put that hoodoo to bed. But
it's a bad time because we could do with them doing us a favour against Arsenal tomorrow, and then we want them to do us a favour again against us on Thursday.
Revert all your form and beat the league leaders, but then
revert to
your
form.
Don't revert to your form against City. It's a weird one, isn't it? But I don't know. Like, Spurs haven't been playing great recently. I do believe if we played that good as we did, particularly in the second half, I think we beat Spurs. And that's not saying it as an optimistic City fan. I just think it's true. I really believe that. There's enough there, enough control. And you could see the belief coming back into them. You could physically sense that they were feeling, we feel like us again. They were standing a little bit taller, the passes were a little bit crisper. And all we can hope is that sense of injustice, And to be honest as well, we walk back to his best. I mean, Son, I'm not trying to jinx it here, but he hasn't been in his best form. He's been so deadly on the counter against City over the years, and hopefully, with Walker's pace, who knows, maybe Son scores a goal offside and it's given anyway, who knows these days. But hopefully we will all kind of cover him on the counter, because that's where they've been deadly against us, and hopefully, Rodri follows Kane about maybe.
Yeah. Well, if Rodri performs like that again, I'm sure that City will do, fantastically. And if the players that, the Cancelos, Walkers that, showed themselves again today, Shaun, I can't wait for Thursday night.
Yeah, I think the lads perform well, and they know that. And I think that will be the thing that they'll go into the next game. There are times when you play a game and you lose and you think, oh, we've lost. But when you've performed well, you go into the next game confident and positive. So the players will be that way. They'll look at this and go, right, we played well. And I think the takeaway that the players will take is when we've got that momentum and it's 1-0 and it's a top team or a tough team that you're playing, can we just get that second goal? Because I think the second goal for us at that point would have just totally killed the game, because they would have been dead and buried. So I think the takeaway from the players will be, when we're in those points of having momentum, got that 1-0, getting that second goal, puts it to bed. But yeah, I think it'll be a good game. I think it's going to be absolutely. It's at Etihad, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be. It's going to be rocking.
Yeah, it'll be
really
loud.
is.
The fans will be up.
Well, because everyone's going to have the fire in the belly.
Yeah.
Do you know, I'm calling it now, David. We're about to go on one of our mad second half of the season, long
You're giving me
game,
goosebumps.
unbeaten
I genuinely think
runs.
we could do it. I think we could do. There's a line in the sand moment in football sometimes, isn't there?
I tell you what, I wouldn't. I mean, I obviously wouldn't say no to that happening right now. But it's the one. I think that's the thing that City need this season now. Simply because you look at the setup of the season so far, we haven't put a run of victories together. We haven't put one of those runs of 4, 5, 6, 7 games where teams come up against City and go, oh God, they've not conceded in 3 and they've scored 8 in the last 4 or whatever. There hasn't been that sense yet, and we tend to see it from City in the second half of the season when they go through. I think the Centurions year is the odd one out there, where it was in the first half of the season. But there's no reason to believe that this City team, on that performance today, aren't starting to find their feet again into this season and get going. Don't forget, it's a weird season. Just as the season was picking up, we all stopped and we went off to Qatar to watch the World Cup, and then we all come back again. And you've got to have another. It's like another pre-season to get into this mode. And you have a couple of dodgy performances, a couple of performances where you get through but not quite at your best, a couple where you don't play very well and you lose, like happened on Wednesday night, and then you have what happens today, and you go. As Shaun said, there's a real sense of injustice over the result because and you use that then to kind of put your winning run together.
Definitely.
And City know you look at the table and City know whether Arsenal win, lose or draw tomorrow. They know that Arsenal have not escaped them yet, and they've not done what they need to do to win the title. They'll know that the teams behind them are pushing for being in this race as well. And so it's a case of we do our jobs, we can win this league. So let's go and do our jobs. It's still
last positive thing again, the context of that performance today. It's worth remembering and stressing, in my opinion, just what preceded it. I watched it as a City fan, and you guys did. The Southampton game, it wasn't good enough, and we knew that we needed a reaction. And Gundogan came out and said it wasn't good enough and that they needed a reaction. And Guardiola implied that as well. And all the context was that we had was City have not been at the best, and we need to be better. So whatever they did, basically, it literally worked. So it felt like that the refocusing that needed to happen actually did, and that to me is really reassuring, because you can tell that they're aware of their own shortcomings there for the last couple of weeks, and that reaction to me and the manner of it, that to me is really, really encouraging.
If they played badly today, then
that would have been
then they'd have been cause.
Because they would have tried, don't you? That's the thing. You know they tried today,
badly.
but they tried and it worked until that happened.
Well, thank you. It was a pleasure watching the game with you, regardless of the result. Shaun Goater, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much, David and Stephen.
And
thank you all for joining us on Matchday Live today. It was not the result that we were hoping for. It was indeed the performance that we were hoping for. The fight is back. Rodri is a phenomenon. And hey, none of us understand the offside law. Matchday Live will be back on Thursday as we take on Spurs. And trust me, Blues, we're about to go on a mad, crazy, unbeaten run. All hope is not lost. We will fight, as we always do, till the end. We'll see you on Thursday.
Je me rappelle vraiment pas quand j'étais vraiment petit. Et je me rappelle à partir de 4-5 ans, je jouais tout le temps. Donc voilà, il restait que moi et mon frère. Et moi, je savais que j'avais le foot et je savais que je pouvais faire quelque chose. Donc je me suis donné plus les moyens.
It's Kennedy who headed it, claims of a handball. Referee says no, City players absolutely certain. Play goes on and they've scored anyway. Kelly again. Managed to get the cross in once more, and there's Coombs, and that's 1-1.
Dzeko! Oh, that's the best of the bunch! He has saved the best till last. Edin Dzeko with a sumptuous goal.
Won't be a second, we're going to go live to you.